Hey everybody, Michael the Librarian of Magic here, finding and cataloging the magical and pointing you to it. Today is October the 21st. Had to look at my calendar as always. And I've got another Halloween drawing, another Halloween treat for you today. Same disclaimers as always apply. At this point, if you've been following along, you know the drill with that, where to find information if you are looking for it. With that out of the way, today's villain drawing is Lampwick from Pinocchio, 1940s Pinocchio. And he's playing pool here and smoking a cigar, just like he is in the film. I'm pretty sure this is a still from the film that I found. He was animated by, a couple people. Eric Larson was the principal animator, legend Eric Larson was the principal animator on the donkey, when Lampwick turns into a donkey. But Fred Moore worked on this character reportedly. It's not specifically credited, but it's believed that he is pretty much responsible for coming up with Lampwick's story arc and potentially adding the red hair and the buck teeth as making a caricature of himself. So it's pretty commonly believed that that's the case, but it's not specifically credited that way. So I don't know if there are official interviews about that or not. That's something that would probably warrant more digging, but that's the general story that I came across. Lampwick is basically a delinquent kid who is on Pleasure Island and is trying to seduce Pinocchio into doing all sorts of bad stuff, like smoking and fist fighting and breaking things and all the bad stuff that these kids get up to on Pleasure Island. He's arrogant and cocky and, just too big for his britches, basically. But when he starts turning into a donkey, we find out that he's actually a coward. He cries out for his mother. He's terrified. He's just sort of full of it. And he's not really who he, makes himself out to be, obviously. And we've all known people like Lampy here. And I don't think it turns out well for him in the film. I think the implication is that he turns into a donkey and then gets sold into slavery by those creepy, child thief. I don't even know what they are. Shadow people? It's very alarming sequence. It's very, very scary. But I don't think Lampwick makes it out. I think there was some storyboard where he originally was supposed to escape with Jiminy and Pinocchio, but that never really occurs in the finished product of the film. In the original book by Carlo Collodi, Lampwick's name is Lucignolo, I think I'm saying that correctly, which in Italian means candlewick. So that's sort of where the name Lampwick comes from. And it's mentioned, apparently, in the novel that his real name is actually Romeo, but everybody calls him Lucignolo because he is slender. And so it's a nickname, Candlewick, for being super skinny and slender. In the original book as well, there are a few other differences. Lucignolo, or Candlewick, or Lampwick, is the one who convinced Pinocchio to go to Pleasure Island, and not Honest John and Gideon, the fox, in the movie. It was actually Lampwick himself that convinced Pinocchio to go. And in the book, instead of turning into a donkey and being sold into child slavery, I guess that sort of does happen, but Lucignolo ends up getting sold to a farmer. And later on in the story, Pinocchio ends up getting a job as a farmhand at that same farm, and he recognizes Lampwick there. And after he recognizes him, Lampwick shortly thereafter dies from being overworked to death. If you didn't know, the original novel or story of Pinocchio is very dark. It's one of those old school stories of being a cautionary tale for young boys and stuff about, staying on the straight and narrow. And it's got some scary elements to scare kids off of doing bad things. let's see here. He was voiced by, well, in donkey form, the donkey noises were Clarence Ducky Nash, who was obviously the voice of Donald Duck. If you want to hear a lot about Clarence Nash's career, check out the Donald Duck video earlier in this series. His actual, Lampwick boy voice was an actor named Frankie Darro, who was a child actor in the silent years in the 20s. He was in westerns and serials and silent films and stuff like that. In the 1930s, he took the lead role in something called Wild Boys of the Road, which was this film that was kind of an indictment of teens that were vagabonding across America during the Depression. And after he took on that role, after Frankie Darro took on that role, he started to become typecast as a small but tough guy, a pint-sized tough kid, who was sort of, the kind of guy that was all bluster but tiny in stature. And so eventually that's how he ended up landing on the voice role of Lampwick as well. He sort of got typecast in these kind of roles. Lampwick has another really strange little cameo feature, I guess, in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, of course, since everybody seems to show up in that movie if you're eagle-eyed enough, which is sort of one of the fun things about that film. But he shows up in a cigarette advert. There's like a poster on one of the walls that shows Lampwick with his donkey ears and donkey tail, and it's a smoking ad, or maybe anti-smoking or something like that. But he shows up on this ad, a smoking ad, cigarette ad. He was really never hardly featured as a walk-around character in Disney. He's not one of those guys that you could meet. He's kind of rare that way. But he was featured in the 2013 event at Walt Disney World in Florida called Disney Dreamers Everywhere. There was a special meet and greet for that one special event with Lampwick and Pinocchio and some of the other characters. I can't remember which other ones. Maybe Honest John. But Lampwick he was featured, and some of the other Pleasure Island boys and stuff like that were featured in the Main Street Electrical Parade, the original Main Street Electrical Parade. And speaking of the parade and a magical thing, I have here one of the burned bulbs or used bulbs from the original Main Street Electrical Parade. They used to sell these as souvenirs when they were dismantling or repairing or whatever the original parade. They brought back the parade, the Main Street Electrical Parade, in recent years, like a year or two ago. In new incarnation, I don't think they probably use the same old school tech anymore. They probably use LEDs and all that kind of stuff, but this is a cool thing that I have in my possession. So it's kind of a magical little deal. Main Street Electrical Parade is great. But he was featured in that, in one little segment of that parade a little bit. And that is basically about Lampwick. He's very interesting as a character. Doesn't feature heavily in the movie, but he makes a big presence because he's kind of a jerk, and he's definitely convincing Pinocchio to go down a bad road. And poor, impressionable Pinocchio. So yeah, there's Lampwick. I hope you enjoyed that drawing. Maybe it was an unexpected character. It's kind of what's happening in some of these videos lately. Kind of digging deep into the vault, deeper than I had to last year, because when you start drawing upwards of 50 different villains, you have to start to expand your horizons to get original villains instead of duplicates. So, but it's really fun finding these guys, digging into the Disney catalog, and talking about the people who brought them to life, who animated them and voiced them and all that stuff. I'm learning a lot, and I hope you are too. So thanks as always for watching these, for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And I'll be back tomorrow with another one of these, another Halloween treat, another villain drawing. Please join me then for the rest of the month. Until then, bye-bye.